Have you ever thought about how just one tiny moment in history could change, well, everything? Today we're diving into a huge what if from 2003. We're asking a pretty wild question. What if that infamous spider hole had been empty?
Okay, so picture this. It's December 13th, 2003, near Tikrit. U.S. forces are closing in on this tiny, muddy bunker. They are absolutely convinced they've finally cornered the world's most wanted man. They move in, and nothing. It's empty. And that right there, that's our starting point. That one empty hole is where history splits in two.
The immediate fallout? Oh, it would have been an absolute disaster. A catastrophic intelligence failure. For the United States, this would have been a huge black eye on the world stage, a massive blow to its prestige. You'd have the Pentagon just scrambling, trying to answer one simple, brutal question. We spent billions, and he's just gone?
So instead of the world seeing that famous image of a captured, defeated dictator, you get something else entirely, something way, way more powerful. Saddam Hussein would have instantly morphed into a myth, a legend. He's no longer just a man. He becomes a symbol. This ghost of the desert, whispering promises of a return to power.
And that is exactly how a legend is born. It's this wild idea that by not being there, by being absent, his presence actually becomes more powerful. All of a sudden, you've got all these different scattered groups with a single figure to rally behind. We're talking tribal leaders, insurgents. They could all unite, and not because he's on the phone giving them orders, but because they all share this deep faith that he's coming back.
Right. So this growing legend, it's not just some story people are telling around a campfire. It would have had immediate, deadly consequences, leading to a totally different and much, much darker war. The idea of Saddam on the run, that isn't just propaganda. That is pure gasoline on the fire of an already growing insurgency.
First off, let's just talk about time. With a symbolic leader like that out there, on the loose, the insurgency has this constant source of inspiration. It just keeps them going. Experts figure the war in Iraq could have dragged on for another, 5 to 7 brutal years. Just think about that. Coalition forces would be hunting a ghost while fighting a very, very real and highly motivated enemy on the ground. And during that extra time, the violence itself would have just exploded. We're talking a dramatic escalation. With Saddam's old network potentially active again, attacks become way more coordinated, way more frequent. The projections are pretty stark. Guerrilla attacks on coalition forces and Iraqi infrastructure could have pretty much doubled.
The human cost of that, of course, would have been staggering. A longer, more intense war, it's simple math, really. It just means more lives lost, on all sides. It's estimated that the number of casualties for both coalition forces and, so tragically for Iraqi civilians, could have been twice as large as in our actual timeline.
And this chart right here, it really puts it all into perspective. It shows you just how devastating that impact would have been. Look, we're not just talking about abstract numbers on a page. The difference between these two bars represents thousands and thousands of real lives altered forever, or just gone. And it all traces back to that one single empty hole in the ground. It's unbelievable.
So why? Why would it have been so much worse? Well, because Saddam knew the underground better than anyone. He could have reactivated his entire network, we're talking old officers, intelligence agents, all those hidden stashes of cash, and used it to turn any attempt at stabilizing the country into just complete and utter chaos.
Which leads us to the billion-dollar question, doesn't it? Could he have actually pulled it off? Could this ghost of the desert have really come back and retaken the throne?
And the consensus from pretty much everyone who's looked at this is no, probably not. The country was just too fractured, too broken for him to ever truly rule it again. But, and this is a huge but, he could have done something arguably worse. His real power wouldn't have been in ruling. It would have been in playing the spoiler, weaponizing chaos just to make sure no new stable government could ever take hold.
Okay, so this is where things get really wild, because the story takes a massive turn here, and the ripple effect, it goes global. You see, the biggest, most profound consequences of Saddam's escape might not even have happened inside Iraq at all.
So here's the crucial point. You know that saying, nature abhors a vacuum? Well, so does geopolitics. With Iraq just locked in this prolonged state of chaos, that power vacuum has to be filled by someone. And who fills it? The people who can organize fastest in that kind of chaos. That means a group like Al-Qaeda in Iraq could have consolidated power and evolved into something much, much bigger, far earlier than it did in our history.
This timeline here really lays out that domino effect. You can see it clearly. The escape in late 2003 leads to a much longer insurgency, which pushes back any chance of a US withdrawal for years. All that time, that power vacuum is just sitting there, which just accelerates the rise of extremism. The entire political map of the region basically gets fast-forwarded by a decade, creating a whole different set of crises.
And this table kind of breaks down what that 10-year shift would mean for everybody else in the world. It's pretty straightforward, right? A more unstable Middle East directly translates to more expensive oil at the pump. It means a higher risk of wider conflicts that could pull in other nations. And it means years of constant tension shaping international politics.
But what about the man himself? The man at the center of all this chaos? I mean, even a ghost can't hide forever. Sooner or later, the story of Saddam Hussein would have to find its ending.
You know, it doesn't really matter where he was hiding. Whether he was living a simple life out in the desert or hidden in some city in plain sight, the odds were just completely stacked against him. The bounty on his head was enormous. It was only a matter of time. Sooner or later, one of his own would have turned him in for the reward. In a game with stakes that high, betrayal isn't just possible, it's almost inevitable.
And here's a kind of weird side effect of all this. His escape would have almost certainly become a piece of dark American humor, a meme. You can just hear people saying it, right? Like, can't find your keys? Well, they're probably hiding with Saddam. He'd become this cultural shorthand for anything and everything that was impossibly elusive.
And that really brings us to our final thought. The world would have been drastically different, more violent and more unstable for a lot longer. But the final chapter for the man who kicked it all off, it would likely have been exactly the same. And that's a pretty stark reminder, isn't it? People who build their power on creating chaos, they tend to meet the same fate. The only real question is when.